So next speaker is Thomas, and as he's user researcher, he will tell us how can that thing save us time and money, and we are very happy to learn from him. Welcome, Thomas.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of an introduction about myself. As you know, I'm Thomas Rasmussen, and I'm from this city. I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And remarkably, I have a friend here from Vancouver who I went to high school with. So I'm from Vancouver. For many years, I worked in digital marketing, like some of you. And I worked in e-commerce and digital marketing for retail for many years. And I sort of hit a plateau, and I was ready to make a bit of a change. And I decided to move to Manchester, where I have another friend. My friend Dan is back there, who I studied with in Manchester. So I went to Manchester to change my career. I wanted to move to Europe. And I studied at a place called Hyper Island with these people. You can see Dan and I up there just to the left of Justin Bieber. And so we studied there together. I studied a course called Digital Media Management, and I got my master's degree there. And so I was studying how to manage digital projects, user experience, user research, things of that nature. And remarkably, well, not so remarkably, it was an excellent program. And afterwards, I got a job right away. I worked with these fine young people at a small industrial design agency called Invented, and they hired me as their design researcher. So at Invented, we were working in mostly physical products, packaging, and some customer experience. So and some digital, where digital and physical overlapped. So I worked with them for about a year and a half, and I was the lead design researcher there, and I was really going out into the field. I was doing ethnographic research. I got to travel all over England and test different products on people and learn from them, doing usability testing. So that's where I come to now in my presentation. User research, how to do it, and why it will save you time and money. If you want to connect with me, I can be reached on Instagram and Twitter up there at It Was Rasmussen. I gave this talk a little bit of a cheeky title. I was inspired by Tim Ferriss. If you know him, he names his books such things as The 4-Hour Body and The 4-Hour Work Week. And I thought, well, this was sort of something to get attention about money and time. So I thought that was a good way to name my presentation. But I do honestly do believe that user research is an excellent way to save time and money. So on to it. This is interactive a bit. Does anyone know who that is? Johnny Ive, right, of Apple. So everyone knows him. Does anyone know who this is? Come on, anybody? Really? Okay, so this is Yves Behar. He's from Bern. He's probably one of the most famous industrial designers working today. My colleagues and I, we were big fans of Yves Behar, and that's why I brought him into this presentation. He's Swiss, and he's excellent industrial designer. So now you know, okay? So he owns a company in California called Fuse Projects, and they've done some remarkable work. And I'm going to just run you through it so you have an understanding of how excellent really the work is. Samsung Frame, it's the TV that looks like a picture frame. Hive thermostat, the Herman Miller sail chair, Tile key tracker, Jawbone fitness tracker, and last but not least, Juiceroo. Has anyone heard of Juiceroo? Of course. So now I'm going to talk about Juiceroo. I was leading up to that. I want to say that I am a big fan of Fuse Projects, but I'm going to talk about Juiceroo. Juiceroo is a business that was founded in 2013. And their main business, their product was the Juiceroo itself, this physical product. And it was a juicer. And how the business worked was you would order through a subscription service, cut up fruit in bags. It came in the mail. And you would receive it, and you would press the fruit in this juicer, and you would make juice. The thing is, this product originally, when it went on sale, was $700 US. And then they lowered the price to $400 US. So a little bit more about Juiceroo. they had some huge funding. They raised 120 million US dollars. Had huge backing. So Kleiner Perkins, Google Ventures, Campbell Soup, they had some of the best partners, some of the best venture capital firms backing them. So a lot of money behind them. The thing is, though, fast forward to April 2017, Bloomberg released a video demonstrating that you could actually squeeze the bags of fruit with your bare hands and make the same amount of juice in about the same amount of time. So fast forward again to September of that year, Juiceroo was done. So $120 million gone, 4 years of work gone, business shut down. So I think there were many problems with this business. And I think some of them definitely could have been solved by user research. So now we're into my talk, how to conduct user research. I think there's two components that I'm going to go over. I'm not going to go into huge depth on everything you can learn about user research. There's lots to know, but I'm going to talk about two main topics. The first one is, it's very simple. Part one, speak to users in their natural environment. This is all about actually going into the field, finding users and speaking to them where they live, work, and shop. This is what I firmly believe is the greatest thing you can do as far as user research. It's really quite simple, is speaking to users where they are. Now, with that said, a lot of people have some fear about going out and speaking to users, speaking to them, where they are. And I can understand it. It can be a bit scary. And because of that, there's two quotes that get thrown around a lot by two very famous industrialists as reasons not to do user research. And the first one you might be familiar with. Steve Jobs, it's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's quote number one. Quote number two, Henry Ford, he said, we actually don't know if he actually said this, but it gets thrown around a lot. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. That's excuse number two, not to speak to users. And my rebuttal to that is, do not ask users what they want. Don't do it. And the reason you should not ask users what they want, they lie. Users will lie to you. And they don't do it out of spite or hatred for you or think that you are stupid or that your product idea is stupid. That's not the reason. They do it out of caring for you. They don't actually want to hurt your feelings. And I say that because people actually, for the most part, are quite agreeable. When you present them with something, they want to support you. That is the case. And I have a tool and a method that I learned on how to get around this, how to get honest, true feedback from users. And it's called the mom test. This is my mom visiting me in Manchester. Now, the mom test is actually a book written by a guy named Robert Fitzpatrick. And it's a wonderful tool on setting up how to ask questions so you get honest feedback. And I'm going to run through some of that now. So you might say, so what do I ask? If this was your product, you have Juiceroo now, and potentially you would go forward and you say, do you think this is a good idea? No, don't ask that. Never ask something like that. Avoid yes or no answers. You want open-ended questions. Opinions really are worthless. Unless someone is immediately going to write you a check for that idea or for that product, it's useless feedback. You want to be open. Second question, you could ask, would you buy a product that made a juice at home? This is also a bad question. You want open feedback. You want to go and actually observe users where they live, work, and shop. Really get an understanding if this is going to be the correct product to make. Is it going to have the correct features? Is it going to be priced correctly? So how would you do that? You would say, what do you drink? Where did you get it? Why did you drink it? Talk me through the last time you had juice. These are the kind of things that you actually want to know. Deeper understanding, deeper empathy with the user. Another question, how much would you spend? Certainly, that is a question that no one at Juiceroo probably ever asked. And it's actually a bad question, but in this case, I'm sure Juiceroo should have asked this, but they didn't. Instead, you would want to ask, how much do you spend on your health? How much do you spend on beverages? These are the things that you really want to find out. And these are the kind of answers that you'll get that then you can build a case around. So in conclusion for the mom test, you want to talk about their life instead of your idea. You want to ask about specifics in the past instead of opinions about the future. And talk less, listen more. So I want you to remember, you aren't allowed to tell them what their problem is, and they aren't allowed to tell you what to design. You as the designer are up to that. And they own the problem, you own the solution. So as designers, we own the solution, okay? So that being said, now the second part of this is something that I think gets overlooked quite a bit. Part 2 to excellent user research, communicate what you learn. This is very, very important, and I have a GIF to demonstrate it. No one works alone. So if we're going to design products, services, it's always going to take a team. So as much as a user researcher can go out into the field and learn all about the user, it's useless if it just remains in one person's head. And that's where you really have to learn to communicate what you've learned from the field and communicate it with your team. You're going to be working with designers, architects, UX designers, graphic designers, your boss, your client. Everyone in your team needs to have an understanding of what you've learned. So I have 3 strategies for how to do this effectively. Number 1, work in teams. There's 2 reasons to do this when you're doing user research. The first reason is when you're conducting interviews with people, it's really great to have 2 people there. One person can focus and ask the questions of the interviewer. They can look them in the eye and really communicate with them. And the second person that's there can take notes, photos, and video. They can be surrounding themselves, looking around, getting an idea of the surroundings. Whereas one person can really focus and ask questions, look them in the eye. So it's great to have 2 people. That's one reason. The second reason to be a team when you do user research is, for instance, at my last company that I worked at, I would always take an industrial designer on the team with me on these field trips, on these ethnographic field trips. Because then when we had gone back to pitch what we had learned to the team, I had an advocate. I had a designer that had been there, they had seen it, and they could really speak to the value of what we had seen in the field. So that's really important. If you can bring a UX designer or a designer or an industrial designer, like in my case, with me on those trips, they will be an advocate for what you saw and what you've learned. Second, do not write a big report and expect anyone to read it. They're awful. We all know that they often get put in a desk. What I think you should do is give presentations. Give excellent presentations as to what you learned. Boil down what you've learned into nuggets of information and present those. That's something that people will actually remember. Your client will remember, your designers will remember on your team. So if you have to give a presentation, of course, do it, but don't expect anyone to be like flipping through it. It's presentations and great nuggets of information that really resonate with people and will be remembered. And the way to give excellent presentations is the third. Document everything. So when you're in the field, take lots of notes, take lots of video, and take lots of photos. You can always edit down your photos and your videos. I worked on a project last year for many months that had us working on a consumer electronic product. And I was going around doing testing throughout England, and I noticed we were testing a market-leading product, and I think about 8 out of 10 of the people that I tested that product on, they had a major problem with one component of that product. That was a fantastic thing to see in video. Compile that into a demo reel and see customer again and again and again having that same problem. And showing that to the client was phenomenal, because then the client could really see, here's an opportunity. So a demo reel of video can be extremely strong as pushing forward an idea that you want to push or a design that you see an opportunity. So with that in mind, in conclusion, successful user research is 2 things. It's asking better questions of your users and communicating better with your team. So it's those 2 things, which I think for a short presentation, I think you really need to know. And I think then you can, of course, save $120 million US and 4 years of your life. And I wish you all the best. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.